It's so easy to forget. High school is 4 years, but the time that you build your college application is 3. Find the nichest thing that interests you and just do it freshman year, because if you end up developing an interest in it that's genuine, nobody can take that from you your whole life, and you might have something really cool to write about for your college application. Because everybody around me had, like, a nonprofit or, like, a national award and they, like, won ISEF or whatever, I was like, literally, what have I done? But then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, wherever I end up is where I belong. Since like the high school I went to wasn't necessarily the high school I wanted to go to, it just like happened to turn out that way. But I was still able to find my niche and fit in right that way. So I figured like no matter what college I go to, I should just trust that I'm able to do the same thing.
Welcome to AdmitOne, the college admissions podcast from XceptU. I'm Marc Zawel, co-founder of XceptU and your host. On this show, we pull back the curtain on the admissions process, hearing directly from former admissions officers, successful applicants, and parents who have been through it all. So whether you're just starting to plan or you're deep in your own application process, AdmitOne is here to give you some real perspective to make the process clearer, simpler, and hopefully a lot less overwhelming, and ultimately to help you achieve the results that you're aiming for. So today I'm joined by an incredible student, Annie, rising sophomore at Johns Hopkins. She began with XceptU in her sophomore year, developed a standout application, reflected her interests in research, social impact, and medicine. Annie, thanks so much for being with me here. And I'd love to start just maybe take a couple minutes, introduce yourself to everyone, talk a little bit about where you went to school, your background, and what ultimately led you to Hopkins.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Annie. I'm from California. I'm from the Bay Area. I went to high school in the Bay Area. I've been here. I went to school my whole life here. I always kind of knew I wanted to do like something pre-med related. So I kind of started on that pretty early. High school was a weird time actually because I had gone to private school pretty much my whole life until high school. And then in high school, I switched to public school. So it was really weird, like navigate. And it was like COVID during my entire first year. So like not only did I not know anybody or like the system at all, I also had to like adjust to like COVID too and like navigating all of that online. So it was a really weird transition. So I kind of had like a rocky start in high school actually, but sort of like in adjusting to that, I think I learned a lot like about myself and just like about like change. And I think that definitely helped me in general with like other things, like especially the college app process. So when I did end up applying for college, it was definitely like still stressful, but I think I was able to deal with like the amount of change that required a little bit better because of my experience there.
How did you find that transition from like middle to high school? Obviously, you were starting at a different school. You were moving from a private to a public school. Did you feel like socially and academically there was just this like period of transition? Because I think it's very common among freshmen, ninth graders to have this kind of year of just like finding your footing, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I was finding my footing in a lot of different ways. I think grades wise, I had always like, that was never really much of an issue for me because I'd been so used to like academically rigorous material from such a young age. But I think a lot of private schools, especially when you're in the younger grades, are very like handholdy. Like you're in a really small class. My class size was never bigger than like 20 people, and you
Hmm.
have like several teachers. Like the teacher student ratio is like crazy. You like really have a really like close intimate relationship with your teachers. You never like have to worry about getting the help you need because it's so like available to you. Whereas in public school, especially online, it's so much harder to like reach out and ask for that help because like not only are the class sizes like massive, like my high school was like really big. My graduating class was like over 800 people.
So you go from like a class of 20 to a class of
Yeah.
800,
Yeah, it
basically.
was it was a lot. So, and just like learning to like navigate. Also, like school culture was just like so different in public school versus private school. So, just kind of, I think learning to navigate that socially was kind of hard for me, especially online since I didn't like know anybody. That's another thing. High schools aren't like K through 12, and all the schools I had gone through like previously were K through 12, and I had stayed in them for like longer chunks of time. So I'd always known people pretty much no matter what. So I went into high school not knowing anybody and like it all being online. So it was like I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna make friends? But it ended up working out. But it was definitely very different. And it was also like having to get used to not just like being able to like kind of do like kind of take all the classes you want. There is like a concept of like you can want to do something and not be able to do it just because of like schedule constraints and all of that. And I had, like, no concept of, like, not being able to take, like, a class I wanted to take. I remember when I rolled around to, like, wanting to take AP classes, I emailed my counselor, I was like, "Hey, I'm a freshman, like, can I know what APs I can take?" And she was like, "You cannot take any APs in school until junior year." Like, I had no concept of that because I wasn't just able to take those in my old school, it was actually, like, a requirement, like, you had to take AP classes to graduate in my old school. So just, like, kind of being like, my whole experience had been, like, being set up to, like, do really academically rigorous stuff and never having to, like, plan or think about it myself, to, like, having to, like, make a very, like, focused effort to make sure I'm still able to do everything as rigorously as I want to, as much as I know I needed to get into a good college, but having to do that kind of, like, by myself.
Take me to the moment that you get into Hopkins. Like, what does that look like?
But you know what? It's so funny because I was actually sick as a dog, like, I was so ill, but I had gone it was, like, the day that the thing came out, and I had actually stayed home from school because I was so sick, but it ended up, like, being kind of nice because I didn't have to, like, open it, like, in school with, like, everybody watching. Because okay, like, one thing about, like, Bay Area high school culture is that college F season is, like it's rough. It's rough for a lot of us because it's, like
It's serious. It's serious.
it is very serious. Like, I remember when Stanford came out, everybody, like, lined up and opened it, like, in school, like, in front of each other, and I was like I didn't apply, so I was like, "Oh my god, you guys are, like, crazy. Why would you do that?" But, yeah, I was not about that life, like, I did not want to be doing that. So, I just happened to be home, and then I called my dad, and I was like, "Hey, like, my application came out, and do you wanna, like, open it together or something?" So he was like, "Okay, yeah, yeah," and he, like, drove over and he, like, picked me up, um, and we went to, like, a parking lot. I was like I never, like, recorded any of my, like, college acceptances up to that point or anything because I just, like it wasn't something I thought about that much, I was just kinda, like, getting through it, but my dad was like, "No, no, no, we have to record this one, I, like, saw it on social media," and I was like, "Okay, sure, whatever." So he was, like, filming on, like, video, so I ended up, like, opening it, and I got it and he, like, screamed really loud and he, like, dropped the phone, so it's actually a really funny video.
You'll have to share it so that we can so I could take a look. That sounds incredible. I love that you were just like in the car too. It's
Yeah,
like,
no, it was
I
so
mean,
funny.
these moments.
Yeah, it was so funny, but it was a real, like, relief too, especially I also applied ED2, so it was, like, nice having that, like, kind of direction to go from there.
It's a huge sigh of relief, and it's incredible to end up at a place that is your top choice. We're going to talk more about kind of how you went about determining where to apply early too. But before we do that, talk a little bit more about like what you're studying at Johns Hopkins. What is it about like that major, or where do you intend on taking all of this?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm studying molecular and cellular biology, and I'm doing a minor in comparative thought and literature. I am pre-med. Okay, I'm pre-med very loosely in the sense that I know I want to do grad school, but I haven't decided if I want to do like an MD, an MD, PhD, or like just a PhD. But I'm right now, like an MD is like the easiest way for me to say like I definitely need and want to do research and still have like a patient focus. So I'm just gonna like put my best foot forward for that. I think that's usually a good move because no matter what, you have to like kind of do a lot of research anyway to like get into med school. So I figured like might as well.
Where does the complet tie into all of this?
Oh my god, you know what's I love humanities, actually. I remember in school, like, it was always like, "Okay, are you a STEM kid or are you a humanities kid?" But, like, I love both. I took, like, a bunch of English classes in high school. I love reading. Because of all the classes that I was able to skip out from, like, because I skipped out of all my intro chem classes and intro bio classes, I have so many gaps in my schedule, and I can just fill them with, like, humanities classes. And I actually hit it off with this professor in, a seminar I took my first semester, and she had suggested that I, like, explore the minor since it's actually a brand new one. It's only, like, coming out in, like, next semester, so, like, fall of 2025. But she was like, "I think you'd really like the minor since you're, like, interested in these things. I think that you should try taking this class next semester and see if you like it." And, like, I really liked the class I took. I really hit it off with that professor too. He, like, recommended me for the program. He, like, gave me the email of the, like, coordinator and set up a time for us to talk, with the, like, director of the undergraduate studies program for it. And so I just met a lot of really cool people in Complet. So I always knew I wanted to do a humanities minor, but it definitely helped me narrow it down.
I love seeing that because for a student who is like kind of balancing both sides of the brain, so to speak, and also just like pursuing your passions regardless of what they are. Like you have an interest in medicine, you have an interest in complet, like go out and pursue both of them. They're not mutually exclusive. You can find ways to pull from the skills and like the interdisciplinary nature of these various academic disciplines, and that's going to set you on like your path and your trajectory. Tell me a little bit more about like how you spent your time in high school. Like, what are the types of extracurricular activities? Did you have like meaningful summer experiences? How did this over several years, like how did you start to build the profile that enabled you to stand out and be as successful as you were in the college process?
I definitely focused a lot on research just because the area I was in had a program where high schoolers were able to do research. Even though it was something that a lot of people in my area did, it was good to like target a specific thing, and I figured that was the thing I wanted to target. I didn't like have this all figured out immediately, of course. I only really started around like midway through my sophomore year, but still having that kind of direction definitely helped since I was able to present what I was doing at a couple of poster symposiums that this place held. So that was definitely helpful in having myself gaining more clarity that like this is what I wanted to do during college as well, and just having a couple of deliverable things that I think definitely helped on my application. That was bench research. I had also done a literature review with a professor student at Hofstra University. We worked together, and that was actually able to get published. And besides that, I took as rigorous of classes as my school could do. Since we weren't allowed to take APs until junior year, I took a couple by myself, just like self-studying. I took AP Chem in sophomore year, just like self-studying the exam. I've always been like a pretty good test taker, so test scores weren't really like an issue for me. Really, it was more actually extracurriculars, like figuring that out. I had done like dance also for like a really long time. I do like a type of Indian classical dance. I've done that for since I was 3, so like 14, 15 years now. So I think having that kind of longevity in something is really cool. I had a lot of cool opportunities surrounding that around like my junior to senior years that kind of came up like sort of randomly almost, but being able to take advantage of those opportunities definitely really helped me. Like I was able to perform internationally, and I was able to perform in like a dance film that like won a couple of film festival awards.
What about summers? Because I know you did like the Yale Global Scholars Program, you did
Yeah.
a medical immersion program. How did you kind of think and plot out your summer experiences?
Yeah, so again with summers, like I didn't really know what to do. So I asked my counselor about them, and she sent me like a list of like competitive ones. So my summer of freshman year, I did this week-long research immersion experience at a university near me. And that was really fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. So I figured for the next summer I'd do something similar. So the next summer it was a lot of well, SAT prep for one. And I did the medical immersion summer academy. And that was really fun. It was a lot of, like, learning about, like, different healthcare professions, getting certified in a couple of different areas, and having the opportunity to, like, do a simulation at a hospital, at, like, the Highland Hospital in Oakland. So that was really cool. And then the summer of my junior year, while I was writing college apps and everything, I did the Yale Young Global Scholars Program.
How important is starting early in the process, both from like a planning standpoint, building a profile, but also just like mitigating stress? I think we generally suggest like starting as early as you can within reason, obviously. You had some direction, but like you also had a little bit of a journey in terms of discovering where this was going to take you.
I cannot recommend enough in terms of planning and like having direction. You know, you are planning on applying and like it's important to you that you go to a T20 school or something. Then getting on it early is so important. One thing that I really wish that I had more time to think about were school clubs. I wanted to have more leadership. But again, because I like was making that transition from middle school to high school, and I didn't like we didn't have any clubs at all in my like old school. So every club that was, like, there in high school would have to be, like, founded by you. So I had no experience in, like, sort of, like, joining clubs, like, sort of applying for officer positions, like, navigating the ranks of that. I only joined, like, 1 club my freshman year, and then by the time I got to sophomore year, it kind of felt like everybody kind of already had it, like, figured out, like, which clubs they were in. So I was like, "Oh, dang, am I, like, too late to join any clubs?" But it still, like, pretty much worked out for me since I got lucky in, like, joining a couple, earlier into my sophomore year, but I definitely, like, looking back, there's a ton of clubs that I, like, would have definitely joined if I knew they, like, existed, in high school.
And it's really about like the depth of the involvement, right? It's less about the breadth. So you really have to start thinking about these activities and clubs like in, say, freshman year. Otherwise, by the time you get going, say halfway through ninth or into 10th, like you're only going to be able to participate for a couple of years. And if you want to pursue these types of leadership positions, like you mentioned, it's the students who've been involved in a longer period of time who are going to have the opportunities to do that.
It's so easy to forget, like, high school is 4 years, but the time that you build your college application is 3, basically. You don't have all of your senior year to build your college application. You have until the end of your junior year summer, pretty much, and, like, first semester of your senior year, maybe. So, like, it's important to keep that in mind specifically because your timeline is, like, shorter than you think it is. Like, however long you think you're doing something, you're doing it for, like, just a little bit shorter. Definitely, like, not, like, to be, like, pressure or anything, but I think, like, figuring out generally, like, at least, like, 1 or 2, like, strong things you know you want to do early on is really good. I think it definitely depends on what kind of school you go to also. Like, school culture, like, just being in the Bay is very, like, everybody is pretty competitive, so you kind of have a general idea of how everybody around, like, else around you is doing and, like, what they're doing. So you can kind of, like, take inspiration from that, and, like, it's generally, like, people are well informed about the college application process and what successful applicants do, so there's a wealth of knowledge to draw from in that sense. In terms of essays, start early, finish early, do it all early, like, supplements, do them early. I don't care if you, like, have nothing to do. I say this too as someone who had, like, difficult classes senior year. Like, I had, like, very time-intensive class. Like, I was, like, my AP Lit class at my school is, like, notorious for being the most, like, time-intensive class in the entire, like, school. I had so much fun. It was an incredible class. Like, it was so good. But I was, like, slogging it out, doing, like, first semester, doing that with applications. And I definitely think it could have been helped if I, like, had some of my supplements finished earlier because I was already doing so much writing. And it was just, like, I was so burnt out. I think, like, if I didn't have my Common App essay finished when I had it finished, which was I had it finished by, like, August, so around, like, the end of summer, I would have, like, definitely been, like, drowning.
I mean, that's the goal that we have with our students is just try to get as much of the process completed over the course of the summer because so many of them similar situations in terms of like the rigor of their curriculum in the fall of their senior year. And the last thing you want is your grades to suffer when you're applying to, say, a university early decision and you're going to be submitting your first quarter, your first semester grades. Like they got to be as strong as they can be. So really just like staying on point and getting ahead of the process and planning ahead. I mean, admissions officers only spend like 8 minutes reviewing your entire application. So you really have to invest the time into the application process in order to tie together all of these like narratives and ideas. How did you, so like in looking kind of at your admission strategy, like, did you think like, okay, here are some like of the unique qualities or experiences or accomplishments or like stories or personal attributes or like, how did you kind of build your differentiation, so to speak, in the application process?
Yeah, so I think I focused a lot on, like, how all my experiences pointed me towards wanting to study biology and medicine. So I mentioned before that, like, a lot of, like, the culture where I was growing up was, like, either you're, like, a STEM kid or a humanities kid, but I always felt, like, a very strong connection to both. So I kind of explored how, like, my experiences with dance and, like, the, like, art and humanities side of that reinforced the, like, my, like, scientific intrigue and, like, piqued, like, my intellectual curiosity. I think I wrote my Common App essay about how, like, being really immersed in, like, the art of dance and being very aware of, like, my body and, like, its capabilities at all times, like, piqued my interest in that to the point of wanting to study it on, like, a genetic level. So I think finding, like, unlikely connections between all the things that you're doing was kind of, like, my best bet in, finding, like, inspiration to write on, for my applications. And for more practical things, like specific things about, like, oh, why this school or, like, why your major, I think it's good to, like, know yourself and, like, spend some, like, time, like, dedicated to just thinking about, like, not, like, even for application purposes, like, just genuinely, like, why you want to do what you want to do. It's, like, a big, like, hard question, but if you're able to answer it, like, it will show in your application. Like, you're definitely better for it.
It's clear like you've been and you were very true and authentic to your interests and your goals. Like you didn't make choices. You didn't involve yourself in certain activities just for like the sake of the college process. Like you're coming out of a highly competitive high school, out of a highly competitive area. Students are looking at the most selective school. So like, yeah, there's some like underlying like strategy involved here, but like you can't make it up. You have to kind of be genuine and true. And like, that's so clear. And like the way that you've kind of built your profile and the way in which you were able to present yourself. Tell me when it came time to like figuring out like early decision, what did that look like for you? To what degree were you game theorying, so to speak, like your early decision strategy and process? And how did you ultimately land on Johns Hopkins?
Yeah, for sure. So ED was funny actually because my counselor actually like really tried to convince me to like ED1 somewhere, and I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't really like I don't have any school that I'm like I want to go here. I want to just like cast a wide net because I did apply to like a lot of colleges actually. I think I applied like over 20 or something if you include all the UCs. So I was writing a lot of applications and I didn't know like where it was. I always figured I wanted to end up at like a UC. So like Berkeley or like Davis or like LA, like they were all like my top choices as of first semester. But then around like December-ish, like application dates were rolling around since all of ED1 had kind of like passed over. Um, a lot of my friends did do ED1 to like a couple of Ivies, or like Stanford and stuff, but we didn't really have great results for those, and we've never really had great results for those at like my school, especially for Stanford. I don't know why. But I just like seeing that too, I was like, oh, okay, I guess like maybe it's not like really that important. But then I was talking with my counselor, my dad, about it, and she was like, I still really suggest that you try to go for ED2 because it does like increase your chances by like quite a bit, or like it's not as much as ED1, but it's like not to be ignored. And I was like, okay, but like where would I ED2? So I was looking between Pomona and Hopkins. Pomona's like a school like I've always like since I was like a kid. Like I don't know why, like one of my like uncles or something mentioned it like when I was like, oh, I want to do medicine. And I was like 12 and he was like, oh, you know, Pomona College is like a really nice one downstate. And so we were looking at both options and we had happened to tour Hopkins actually the summer before since when we went to Yale, I have cousins who live in New Jersey. So we kind of just like made a drive of like college tours like a little bit before my program started since we were in the East Coast anyway. And when we toured Hopkins, like it's funny, my dad really loved it and I was like really ambivalent about it. He was like, this is like, I can see you here for like the rest of your 4 years. This campus is so beautiful. And I was like, all right, it's like bricks, like it's fine. um, but the like in deciding like ED, I was like really like I don't want to just like do it because someone's telling me to do because this is like my next like 4 years. Like I'm gonna be like living here and like experiencing like this for like this is gonna be really integral to like the rest of my life. So I did a lot of like thinking and research, and the more I learned about Hopkins, the more I like was like I can see myself here, I think. I looked at a lot of the labs they had and I talked to some like old students that went there and everybody had really positive feedback. I think a thing that kind of turned me off from it at first, which I've learned is like such a weird fake rumor, is that like it has like really cutthroat like competitive culture. I don't know who these people have been hanging out with, but people are literally not cutthroat at here at all. Everyone I've met here is like so nice and so genuine, and like literally nobody is like that about school. Like everybody's really, really chill. I think it's just like depending on like what crowd you get in with. Like if you are cutthroat, you'll attract cutthroat people. So just like be normal. And
It's
everybody
also interesting how sometimes just like stereotypes about schools can be
yeah.
so wrong. So
Yeah,
wrong.
no. I heard so many things. I was like, oh, it's totally dead. It's like no, it's fine. Like it's like a school. It's normal. It's cool. We're chill. So I eventually decided to ED2 to Hopkins, and even when I was ED2ing, I was like a little bit unsure about it, but like as the weeks went on, like I got like more and more sure. I was like, okay, if I do get in, like I think I would be really happy going. So it was like a weird like I was like never even like I almost like didn't even like apply to Hopkins, but I was like, okay, well it's like I'm pre-med, I have to apply to Hopkins. Like I want to study biology, I have to apply there. So it became from like a have to thing to like a okay, this is like a place I really want to go to and I can really see
Mhm.
myself going to.
We talk a lot here about setting students up for success in the college process and beyond. And you just completed, your first year at at Hopkins. Like, do you feel like you are like well prepared? I mean, you also had like a little bit of a challenging transition from like middle school to high school from your, when into now you've had like a different transition, high school to college. Like, talk a little bit about like how the process of applying to college or preparing to apply to college ultimately helped you land not just where you wanted to go, but enabled you to end up at a school that was going to be the right fit and one in which you could really thrive at.
Yeah, so I think just kind of being forced to like gain those time management skills was really helpful. And like I said before, like I'm the type of person who doesn't really do what like I don't want to do, which is like good and bad. Like I was able to stay really authentic to myself all of high school because I was never gonna be the type of person who could like make a nonprofit just for like the sake of making a nonprofit because I was like I don't want to do all that. But I think learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable is something I've really struggled with my entire life. And college apps was that on like steroids. And like first year of college is like that on steroids. But I think like using that muscle and being more comfortable, just like knowing that it's going to turn out okay has been really helpful. But because college apps was so stressful, but the results were fine, I've been like, my mindset has been like, okay, you feel this way now. But by and large, like empirically, the evidence has said that like when you feel like this, by the time dust settles, you're always like fine and everything turns out okay. So just trust that the pattern will repeat itself. I think having that sort of like reassurance is like good. I think it's definitely like still like it's always going to be hard to like do things that make you uncomfortable and to like be in a situation where you feel like kind of like alone or like you're not in a place where you're supposed to be. But I think it's necessary for like growth. And I think it's like helped me more than anything in my life has helped me. So I think it's important to just know that.
Were there moments of doubt or uncertainty along the way? I imagine there had to have been. And how did you address that or overcome that?
Yeah, so kind of twofold, like both in college and like in my college app process. Like, definitely, like being where I'm from, it's like really competitive and it's hard to like not compare yourself to everybody around you because everybody around me had like a nonprofit or like a national award and they like won ISEF or whatever. I was like, literally, what have I done? I don't know what I've done at all. Like, I feel like I've just like screwed around all of high school. These people are like crazy. I'm not gonna like get into anywhere. For whatever reason, too, I was like kind of stressed about that to start with, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, wherever I end up is where I like belong. Even T20 or not, it didn't really matter that much to me since like the high school I went to wasn't necessarily the high school I wanted to go to. It just happened to turn out that way, but I was still able to find my niche and like fit in right that way. So I figured no matter what college I go to, I should just trust that I'm able to do the same thing. And if I go into it with the mindset that like I'm just going to put my best foot forward and wherever I land is where I'm supposed to be, it took a lot of stress off of me. I also think it's like really weird and like kind of toxic to be like, if you don't go to a T20, it's not worth going to college at all. No, college is college. Your experience is not vastly different going to one school over the next. It's just a matter of a couple of resources or opportunities that are more available to you depending on what school you go to.
How are you able to turn off all the noise? Like the TikTok videos of like the kid who applied with like perfect credentials and got rejected everywhere. Like, how do you kind of like get away from that? Because it can be it just adds a lot of stress, of course, but it can also really be distracting as well.
Let me just say, I have so much personal beef with those TikTok people because I have talked for like actual hours to like my friends about how much I hate these guys. Because why are you preying on vulnerable college students, like vulnerable high schoolers during the
So
most stressful time in their lives, talking about how some like 80 AP award, an international award winning kid got rejected from every school except his community college. Like, don't do that. You know what you're doing. You're not being helpful. You're being mean. I like definitely stayed off of that side of social media for like most of my college app process because it's really easy to like want to like be there and like because people like share their essays online and they share a lot of like honestly some like helpful stuff. But I feel like a trap a lot of kids get sucked into is they'll like read all these like really like successful essays and then they'll look at their own and be like, okay, well, mine aren't like that. They're not about the same things. So I don't know if like it'll work. But it's not about like the subject matter that you write about. It's about how you write about it. And the only way to write about it is to write about it in a way that's like most authentic to you. And you can't do that if you're reading other people's stuff and trying to emulate it. So I think just like kind of having that as like a mantra in my head and also being so busy that I didn't really have that much time to be doing other stuff anyway helped for whatever, for
yeah.
better or worse.
Authenticity is just like so important in the process. And like you're right. It's not just, oh, I'm going to look at some other students' essays who've been admitted to these Ivy or Ivy peers and try to formulate an essay that's similar. If anything, that can have an adverse effect for students in the process. It's about staying true to who you are and presenting the genuine side of who you are and feeling confident that who you are is what admissions officers are going to want. And the thing also is that at the end of the day, like you ended up at a school that was right for you. Like admissions officers felt that your background, your interests, your goals, your story aligned with that of the university, and they were right. And so I think like trusting the process is also so important, and recognizing that students end up typically, not always, but typically at the schools that are going to be the place where they can really thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I never would have thought, like, I'd feel as at home at Hopkins as I do. Like, I never would have thought that I, like, want to go back and, like, I, like, don't want to, like, because being all the way across from, like, all of my family, like, across the nation was, like, really, like, it was part of, like, the main reason I wanted to stay in California. Was, like, I knew I wanted to get out of the Bay, but I didn't think I wanted to go, like, so far away since, like, I am really close with, like, my parents, and I miss my dog a lot.
It's a big leap. It's a big distance. I'm curious, like, if you could go back to say like freshman year, like what advice would you give your younger self? Or if you were talking to a current freshman or sophomore today, like what advice would you have as they prepare for their own college process?
Yeah, so I would definitely say, like, try new things in your freshman year. Do stuff that you've never done before. One thing I really regret, like, not doing is, like, trying to join a sport or something. Because I may have the athleticism of a leaf, but I at least want to try something. Try new things, like, do pottery, I don't know, try archery, anything. Find the nichest thing that interests you and just do it freshman year. Because if you end up developing an interest in it that's genuine, nobody can take that from you your whole life, and you might have something really cool to write about for your college applications. This is stereotypical, like, get good grades. Trust me, like, being in college, I know now because the classes are so much harder. Like, once your grades fall, like, a little bit, it's so much harder to get it back up than it is to keep it good. This isn't to say, like, grades are everything or anything, but, like, having a good GPA will never hurt you. You can make up for, like, other things with having a good GPA, but you might not be able to, like, make up for having a poor GPA with other things. Same with, like, testing. It never, especially since the SAT and all this stuff is coming back, it's always good to have, like, good test scores, so just making sure you're really focused in the type of prep you do. Luckily, there's, like, such a wealth of, like, resources online and, like, so many books that are, like, there that were very helpful for me as well, but getting, like, basic things that are pretty much in your control, like, down pat as early as you can is, I think, really important, because extracurriculars and things like leadership positions are a little bit, like, you kinda have to roll the dice on those. There's other people involved. But in terms of, like, your grades and your test scores, like, that's pretty much all on you.
And without that, there's frankly very little or anything else. Meaning admissions officers, that's where they start. That is always the most important criteria that they're going to be evaluating. And you're 100% right. It's a lot easier to maintain academic performance than it is to dig yourself out from a hole. There's of course like some flexibility, like freshman year, students are academically or socially transitioning. Maybe their performance is not truly reflective of their abilities, but then each year there's improvement and they're on a very strong upward trajectory. And admissions officers are certainly understanding of that. But I mean, really focusing on academics, but recognizing that like academics are really only the first hurdle, and like they're a prerequisite, and without them, there's nothing else. But at the same time, with them, it just puts you into a pool of applicants who are academically capable and qualified. And if you talk to like university admissions officers, they'll tell you that the majority of their applicants are academically capable of being successful at their university. So you gotta pass that first bar, but once you do pass that first bar, it's all about the activities, the involvement, the story, the intended academic area of interest. We have so many students, and there are so many students today that are interested in medicine. I'm curious, like, and I guess this will be my final question: is what do you suggest for students who are interested in pre-health or who know that they want to go into neuroscience, perhaps?
Oh, for sure. I think if you're able to shadow doctors in high school, that's really helpful. I was able to shadow at, like, a federally qualified health clinic. My school had this, like, senior thesis, like we had to do like thesis project, like a overarching like year-long project every year except junior year. And our senior year was like basically like a final thesis, and I did mine on health disparities for Hispanic populations in California. Having knowledge that you want to do health is a helpful thing because you're familiar with kind of the rigor that it necessitates. I think getting involved with things like research and anything adjacent to biology or anything like that early on is about the most helpful thing you can do. But I think just like fostering one or two specific things about the health field that you have like a very genuine interest in and just building those up over your high school career is maybe the best thing you can do. Whenever you have like the opportunity to do things related to that, do them, I would say. But you don't have to like keep your head under, like, you don't have to like only do things required to that. Like I did dance, like I spend a bunch of my time involved in other things. Like you don't have to only do the one thing, but if you have the opportunity to do something and it interests you, do it.
Great final advice. Annie, thanks so much for being here with me today. Thanks for sharing your story. And thanks everyone for tuning in to AdmitOne from Except You. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an upcoming episode. And we'll be back soon with more insights, advice, stories that help you tackle the college admissions process smarter and ultimately more successfully. So thanks again, Annie, for being here, and we'll see you all soon.